Advent reading, kind of, I guess kind of a family time. I know we're doing this with our family. We have some different Advent kind of traditions that we do, and one of the things that we're adding this year is we're reading this book. I'm pretty excited about it. It's called Saint Is, and it is Saint is written. I'll put up a picture by Leonard Sweet and Lisa Sampson. Leonard Sweet is actually my mentor for my doctoral program, someone I really look up to. But essentially, let me tell you about it and read. It's a story of the Advent. And this is what the back says. She's got a tale to tell. What if we could pull aside the curtain of time and see behind the scenes of the holy tale of Christmas, to watch Joseph as he plies his trade or Mary's teen years in the highly religious town of Nazareth? What if we swept away the straw and listened to the portrayal of the Christmas story through the voice of a stable animal, say a wise old donkey? Could such a retelling alter our expectations and reawaken our wonder about Christmas? Through the life and wisdom of an ancient donkey, hear anew the account of a centuries-long wait for the birth of the Messiah. Not just any beast of burden. This animal, Saint Is, has a poignant history of her own to share. It is a delight to read how the authors present the world-changing story of the birth of Jesus through the humble, intuitive, and somewhat stubborn and often humorous character of Saint Is. And as I'm going to read the first chapter today, or the first section, and one of the things I think is interesting is to ask a question. What if God, as careful as he was in preparing for the birth of Jesus, was also careful enough to provide the perfect beast of burden to carry and to be with Mary and Joseph as they came to Bethlehem? And that's kind of an interesting thought. So one of the other things I love about this, and I'll put them up with there as we come along with them, is there are these beautiful, beautiful pictures that are just put into the story, and so I'll have them up right on the this part of the screen right here. One of these days I'll get used to that, but yeah. So I just wanted to share this with you, and we'll be doing this through Christmas Day. We had some technical issues yesterday, and so I would have liked to have started it yesterday, but we weren't able to because of some internet issues here. And so, but we'll do that. So, okay, this is Saint Is. The before the any page comes, there is this beautiful picture here that says, and that's Saint Is, which stands for Issy. Of course, Jesus rode one of us to Jerusalem. Horses may get you there in style if you're smart, but donkeys will get you there alive because we're smart. And here's the first section. It's Here We Go. And that picture there it says the legend of Balaam's ass. Humans do what they do. I stopped trying to understand them long ago, but they remain a curiosity. And I can tell you that. Saint Is. Here we go. Once upon a journey to the king of Moab, the prophet Balaam beat his donkey. Now, when one reads his story in the scriptures of the Hebrew people, the story is more about Balaam than the donkey, a she-donkey. Yet, who became the famous one? The creature who became known as Balaam's ass. Why? Because she did something that nobody allows for to this day except in fairy tales when the clock strikes midnight. This sweet donkey, born 10 years earlier, bedded down nightly in the stable of a family, with 3 active children, a bouncy-bodied mother, a father with a magnificent laugh, and a toothless old woman that claimed to be a long-lost great-aunt. Everyone doubted that, but nobody had the heart to really find out for sure if she was telling the truth. For then, as now, loving souls become a family quickly enough. And this great aunt fed the donkey, patted her, and sang songs as she did so. The donkey was nevertheless the beast of burden. When the family needed her because their load was too heavy to carry, the donkey carried it for them. And she took her turn at the village grain mill, faithful and bright. She had given the family donkeys to raise and sell over the years, and they loved her, for this was a special donkey, they said to others. Not that anybody else could see it. They all loved one another, and that was what mattered. One day, misfortune interrupted the family's good fortune and the land's bounty. The donkey was bedding down for the night in the stable when terrible words formed in the mouth of the father came forth. Starlight, for that was her name, either needs to be sold or eaten. We can barely feed ourselves any longer. The old woman rushed to the donkey's side, for stables were just another room of the house back then, gated to keep the animals in, but open to allow for heat in the night when the nights grew cold. The oldest daughter wept. The youngest boy kicked the father in the shin. The middle girl started yelling. The donkey might have yelled too, except at that time she existed in the manner of most other donkeys in her world, only worried about good feed, fresh water, and rest. And like other donkeys in the world, she was aware of danger. She tuned in to their tone of voice. I don't think anyone would be able to swallow a bite, said the mother. Let's calm down. We love Starlight. Everyone agreed, and all three children, the father and the beloved old aunt, settled down. The donkey laid her head back on the straw, thankfully for the donkey, and sadly for all. Rather than eat her, the family sold her to a man named Balaam. She carried him on her back for many years, an important man, Balaam. Balaam divined the will of God for a fee. He also spoke the will of God for free to officials of all types by hearing within himself the voice of God. This was as unenjoyable as one might suspect, for speaking something untrue in the name of God would dry up his tongue like a vine no longer watered from the heavens. And that's the last thing a prophet for hire wants. Called by the king of Moab to curse the tribes of Israel who had gathered at the mouth of the land of Canaan after walking around the wilderness for 40 years, Balaam was promised a handsome reward. God wasn't inclined to cooperate and said a perfect no. But Balaam, blinded by the riches that he might have received, put fresh words in God's mouth concerning his own mission. He believed the Most High decided otherwise than had been spoken, so he traveled to Moab to utter the words of the Lord. But God doesn't change his mind. Even the donkey, who was only called Donkey at this point, knew as much. Still, she had no choice but to bear him towards the summoning king. Balaam and the donkey traveled up a narrow path through vineyards. The day was warm. The prophet ate dried dates from a sack. The donkey slowed, then veered onto a smaller path. "What is it, donkey?" cried Balaam. She stopped and would have stayed there, except Balaam beat her with a stick hard enough. She decided to take her chances back on the path. They traveled a little further between the vineyard walls, and the donkey stopped once more, pinning Balaam's foot to the wall. Again, "What are you doing?" Balaam beat the donkey again. The little donkey, took a few steps and froze. Unable to move sideways due to the closeness of the wall and refusing to move forward, she folded her legs beneath her and lay her head on the trail. A third time Balaam beat upon her thigh. "You horrible creature!" Over and over he slammed his stick. "I didn't slam. Need crack. This pop today." The donkey turned her head and opened her mouth. A squeak emerged, but instead of the ensuing brain Balaam expected, words came forth. Human words. Why do you treat me so harshly when all I have done these years is serve you faithfully? The prophet froze, the cudgel high and ready to strike. He opened his mouth. He looked around to see if he was the only one who heard. Trying to convince himself he heard what he thought he had heard, the words, "If it wasn't for that donkey, you'd be dead," prophet, surrounded him. The words pierced through him in sparks and points as an angel appeared in splendor and strength, sword outstretched. This was not, by far, Balaam's best day. You have disobeyed God in listening to the king of Moab's summons. However, you may continue to Moab, but under no circumstances are you to speak anything to the king other than what God says. The donkey arose, and they moved forward with no more beatings. If only to keep that talking from ever happening again, Balaam told her. On hindsight, that was more upsetting than the angel. Some people, thought the donkey, and surprised herself. Balaam delivered his message to the king of Moab. The king of Moab was not pleased to hear God wanted to bless the Israelites and wasn't planning on sending them away anytime soon. The king was so displeased, he sent Balaam home without one coin. This whole thing ended up costing me money, he said to the donkey, who now that he could speak, decided not to. I told you so might lead to another round with a stick, talking animal or not. And she was smart enough to know that now. The Israelites eventually took over the land and the donkey with it. One evening, the angel appeared to the donkey again, this time humming with the love of God for even a lowly beast. Will you carry the Lord's Messiah someday, little friend? You have proven yourself worthy of such a task. The donkey bowed her head and spoke the last words she would say until the Messiah had need of her. Yes, she said. Until then, carry on faithfully. The angel touched her forehead with a fingertip. The Most High will never abandon you. The angel departed, leaving the donkey to walk the earth wherever humankind decided she would go. The little donkey did her best, but as the years collected, she wondered, especially on the days where she was overworked, overloaded, and neglected, if the Messiah had come and gone without her, or if God had forgotten. It's chapter, I guess it's preface. I'm saying is. We meet the donkey, the she-donkey that will be named Saint Issy is what Mary calls her, we find out. And I think it's interesting to think through all the things that God orchestrated and made happen. Just thinking, well, maybe he orchestrated this. This is just an imaginative telling to help us kind of review and rethink through the story of the coming of Jesus, the story of the Nativity. But I do think it makes us start to think through again and think through all the things that God had done, had prepared. God had created a people. God had brought his people and provided for them and brought them into the promised land. And out of that, eventually, as people were all waiting, this donkey wasn't the only one waiting, but all the people of Israel, they were waiting for the coming of the Messiah. And that's why we kind of remember Advent, because it is a time of preparation, but it's a time where we participate in that story of God's people, that we remember that they waited They waited patiently, and sometimes not patiently. But the idea is that during this time before Christmas, we spend time thinking about what Jesus' coming means to us, what difference it makes in the world, and what it must have been like for those people waiting for Jesus to be born. So for the next 24 days, every day I will read one of these chapters from here. There's some great pictures. You guys have seen some of them. I just think it's good to come to the story in a new and fresh way. And so I hope you guys will join me. This is something I think that I know we're doing this with our girls every night. And so I encourage you guys to watch this with the kids. We can talk through things. If you have questions about it, I would love to talk about it. But this is a chance for us to just have some time and view the nativity story from a different perspective, and hopefully come away with a new appreciation for it. Hope you guys are doing well.